This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so yesterday what we have seen is how to register, create a random alphanumeric number which is not repeatable. Okay, at any
Correct.
point of time, and use
Yeah.
that for our registration. Okay,
Right.
and then print out the registered username into a output file.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so this is what.
Kumar, I had a couple of questions with regards to the for loop kind of a thing. So this was, I think, one of the similar situations which I faced in my previous
I
company.
have a question for the for loop, right? Please go ahead.
Yes. So Kumar, let's say if we are having a for loop and within it maybe we have a couple of actual transactions which are happening, and post which I think there is again maybe within the for loop itself there are some print statements and all. Now, how does one actually get the filtered time? Okay, how does one actually get the filtered time in the middle of all of this, like the filtered transaction time only? Because I think there is a wasted amount of time within the for loop as well. So how does one actually get the specific transaction time only? I understand there is something called as a resume, I think there is, yeah, stop transaction and resume transaction. But apart from that, is there anything else that we can actually go ahead and use?
You can use the sub transactions if you want.
Um, Sorry, can't hear. Hello, hello.
You can use the sub transactions.
Sub transaction.
So, so let's say the for loop is lasting all the way till here. Okay.
Right.
So I have this launch inside this for loop. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the launch transaction. So just to
Hmm.
confirm it, I look into the snapshot view. Okay. So this is the launch. Okay. So this is the
Right.
launch.
Yeah.
So Control T. Okay. So let's say
Hmm.
this is launch, and the launch will end here. Okay.
Hmm.
Control Shift T. Control Space. Okay, so my launch transaction ended, and this is
Yes.
where is sign up. Okay, so this seems to be the sign up. As you can see here, it's a sign up page. Okay, so I would say Control T. This is sign up page. Okay,
Okay.
okay,
Hmm.
okay, sign up page that is ending over here. Okay, Control Shift T, Control Space, sign up. Okay. Now
Okay.
I have the actual registration information that I am giving here. Okay, the output of this one is here. Okay.
Hmm.
So this is actual registration is happening on this transaction. Okay.
Right.
So again, Control T, REG is what I'll give. Okay. So Control Shift T, Control Space, REG, and this is a continuation to the earlier transaction. You see, this is just a GIF file. Okay, this is call for a GIF file, which is a
Hmm.
continuation of this transaction. So what you can do is you can put all of this into one single transaction. No, no, no. Looks like these two are one single transaction. Okay, so you have a think time here, which means that these two transactions belongs to sign off. Okay, this is
Right.
just launching the image, and this is the sign off. So Control T, and you can say sign off, and this is where it is ending, which is sign off. Control Shift T, sign off. Okay, now what is your question? Hang on, I want the full screen. Uh, uh, Layout. Okay, hang on one second. Yeah. Now tell me, what is the question that you have? So
So,
what I've done is the for loop is starting here. The for loop
right.
extends all the way till the registration. You're
Right.
you're which means that you're registering for 6 times. Okay, using this for
Correct.
loop. And there are a bunch of transactions here. One and two and three. Okay, so this is the third
Hmm.
transaction, and you have the fourth transaction here. So yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So I was just wondering for the fact, like, if there is a type of a situation wherein your for loop becomes a part of an existing transaction. Okay. Your for loop
Cannot
itself.
You cannot
Sorry.
do that. You
You cannot.
cannot do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So how can it become a part of a for? I mean, it is not possible. You can put the start transaction instead of outside of for loop, put it inside, right? and at least the
Right.
for loop should last for one single web request. Okay, so if
Okay.
not for more, so keep the for loop outside. I mean, for this, I mean, in this case itself, you want the for
Okay.
loop to be only for this particular web request. Okay, not for the entire thing. So for loop is starting here and then ending here. Put the start and end over here. Okay, if you're putting a start and end outside the for loop, it will capture the response types of all the 6 iterations,
Right. Yeah.
which is not fair. I mean, you could do that, but you can't do. I mean, you cannot make any sensible output of that particular transaction, or you cannot make sensible analysis of that particular transaction.
Okay. Okay.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, I mean, only you created that situation would never arise.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
but if there is something like that, if there is a need, let me know. There is always workarounds for everything.
Right.
Okay, as I've told you, this is one transaction, right? In that there are two web requests. Now you can put a sub transaction inside this to calculate the response times for this and this separately and together. However, my sign off transaction is capturing it, but I want a breakdown for this one how much time and for this one how much time. Then you can put a sub transaction. Control space sub transaction. So you have the sub transaction name and the parent transaction name. Okay, the sub transaction name is here and the parent transaction name is here. Okay, and here the LR end. Okay, so here the sub transaction name we will give it this name itself. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and the parent transaction name, it is a parent. I mean, sign off is the parent for this transaction. Got it right? And you can end
Yeah.
this transaction.
Okay. Okay.
Control
Fine.
space transaction, and again here you have a sub transaction name and status. You need not have to give the parent transaction because you already given that. Okay, so
Okay.
status could be LR auto or LR pass or LR failed. So typically LR auto is given. Okay, same thing you can repeat it for this one as well.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have a parent transaction which will give me the response times of both these requests, but I need a breakdown for this one as well. Then you add the sub transaction.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Now coming back to our class. Okay, so
Yeah.
let me go back to, let me switch the layout to the default layout now. uh, so what was the plan in the last class? Let me open the notepad plus file, so it should be all there. This is your thing. Okay, so what, this is done, right? This is done. Okay,
Yep.
but we have written somewhere what needs to be done. Advanced parameters, file operations. Did we put it here? Question mark. Other advanced types, action field, placement of my leverage save parent. Okay, so this is what
Correct.
we are supposed to cover today. Okay, so what if an action failed? Or in other words, how do we do the error handling? Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so
Okay.
let me take this registration script itself. Okay, now I have the launch transaction. Okay, typically in the real world, how this is done is you have to have a checkpoint for this one. Okay, typically you have to put a checkpoint for every single transaction. This one means one transaction. For both of that, I mean, for this one, you have to have a checkpoint. And you know how to put a checkpoint, right?
Yes, I think we are talking about beverage fine, right?
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
so you can add a checkpoint and just say okay, and you have a checkpoint. Okay, this is
Yeah.
the easiest way to add the checkpoints. So look at the snapshot, click on it, click on the request that you want. Then in the snapshot view, in the page view, it will show the response. Okay, and whatever the
Okay.
text that you wanted to put the text checkpoint on, select that text, right click, and you can say add text check setup, and it will do it for you. Okay,
Is there an image level checkpoint possible to be set up?
sorry.
Is there an image level checkpoint that can be set up?
Image level we can do it, but it will still go ahead and check the name of the image, but not the image itself.
Not the image itself, right? Okay.
Okay. So for example, let's put an image checkpoint here as well. So for putting an image checkpoint, uh, let me launch the page, okay? Now each one has an image name, okay? So
Right.
to get the image name, what you do is you go to the developer tools, okay? How do I get to the developer tools? Just press
F12.
F12,
Hmm.
okay? And then point it to the one that you want the image, okay? So how do I point it? Click on this arrow and then point it to it. You see, it says image. Can
Right.
you see IMG? Okay, it
Yeah.
gives you dimensions of it. Click on it.
Right.
As soon as you click on it, it will go to the source code. You would know the image name. Okay.
Yes.
Each image has two names, two types of names. One is the SRC attribute, one is the ALT attribute. Okay, both are not
Yes.
mandatory. I know sometimes they will give SRC, sometimes they will give ALT. So sometimes they will give you both. Okay, so I
Hmm.
just need either the SRC attribute or the ALT attribute. Here I have the SRC attribute for this one. Okay, so if you go
Okay.
ahead and look at this image, so it has again the SRC attribute. Can you see that logo.png?
Right.
It's an
Hmm.
SRC attribute. Okay, let's go ahead and look at this is also image. Okay, you go and look at it. So let me see what does this has. It has the ALT attribute, okay, and it has the SRC attribute. Can you see that?
Right.
This is
Yes.
SRC
Sometimes
attribute.
it can also be href, is it?
Sorry,
It can also be href as well, right?
it can also be
Href, href, href.
anything, but whether it's a PNG file, whether it's a
Right.
JPEG file, whether it's whatever it is, it would have a SRC attribute or an ALT attribute
Okay.
or both. Okay,
Okay.
so href, I really, I mean, I don't know. I mean, so
Yeah.
let me see what is, when you said href, it's a tag or what is this?
Yeah. It's also an attribute to represent this thing, images.
Images. Okay, okay. Okay, I'm not well versed with the HTML to be honest. Okay, I have
No,
limited knowledge.
don't.
Of that.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure, sure. Yeah.
whatever is required for performance testers, right? That's what I managed to learn. Okay, so
Sure, sure.
href is an attribute for an anchor. Okay, it's an attribute, but even though you have it, but LoadRunner doesn't support or Vuegen doesn't support. For Vuegen, you have to have the LT attribute or the SRC attribute.
Okay.
Okay,
ALT or SRC. Okay.
yeah. So that's something that you will realize. Now let's put it for one of them. Okay, let's
Hmm.
put the image checkpoint for this one. Okay, so which one? This one. Okay, or maybe this one. Okay, so copy. Okay, and one thing that you need to notice is the checkpoint goes before the request. Image checkpoint. The text checkpoint goes before the request. Image checkpoint goes after the request. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so anything that you don't know, any function that you have to build, the easiest way to build is right click, insert, check if the image checkpoint is here. No, image checkpoint is not there here. Start transaction, end transaction, random point, comment and log message is there. So go to new step. Okay, then you see web image check is the function. Okay, but before clicking on it,
Right.
make sure you wanted to insert this function. Click over there and then just double click. You see you have only two things. One is ALT attribute, one is SRC attribute.
Correct.
href is not there. Okay, so you have to
Okay.
get either of them. Here we got the SRC attribute. Just copy that and paste it. If you want, if you have both of them, you can give, but one of them should be good enough. But one thing that you have to notice is it will only what do I say? It will only check for the name. It will not check for the actual image.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So even though you're putting the image checkpoint, it's actually checking for the name if this name is appearing or not. Okay, that's something that you need to remember. So that's the reason
Sure.
why I never saw, at least in my life, anybody using image checkpoint.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, and
Okay.
web page ideally you wanted to put outside the transaction if possible, but sometimes it's not possible. You leave it inside, but ideally if it's possible, you can put it outside. Okay, so
Sure.
well, this is what it is. Okay, are
Okay.
we okay so far?
Yes. Yes. You're good.
We're good, right?
Yeah.
There you go. So for doing the error handling, watch carefully here. Sorry. Each one is an attribute for a function. Okay. Each one is an argument. Okay. This one is an argument. This one is an argument. And I want to add one more argument here, which is what we call it as save count. Okay.
Yes.
Any argument opens with this double quotes, ends with a double quotes with a comma. Okay.
Right.
And finally, any function ends with a semicolon. And generally, any LR function ends with a last. Okay.
Right.
So you see double quotes, comma, double quotes, and then there is comma, double quotes, and then there is comma. Okay. So this is what it is. Save count. Wonderful. Now, save count, it will save the count of how many times welcome is appearing in the response of this request.
Right.
Okay, so welcome, definitely what this web page find will do in the response, it will go to the response of this request, in this case over here, and it will search for the text called welcome, and if it is there, then the web page find will pass, else it will fail. Okay, but save count not only search for the welcome, but it will also search for how many times welcome is happening, and it will save that. Let's say the welcome is appearing 2 times, then the save count will be 2 times.
2.
It will save the count of it. But where you wanted to save that count? Where do you want to save that count? You want to save it in a parameter.
Variable.
Okay? Not variable here, it's a parameter. Okay?
Okay.
So,
okay.
Usually any LR function, it deals with only LR parameters. Yesterday also I have said. Okay? So this function called web service data is an LR function. It deals with only LR parameters, not with C variables. That's the reason why we have converted a C variable into an LR function, and then we have passed it as an input, because LR functions deals with only LR parameters. Here also my web range find, okay, my web range find is an LR function, so it deals with only LR parameters. But sometimes the output of this could be C variables. Okay, sometimes if you are actually outputting this to something else, it could be C variables. Typically, it will be C variables. Okay, if the output of a particular function you wanted to save it, then it will be like a car star or int or something like that. But inside it, if something you are dealing with it, it's usually LR parameter. This is a rule of thumb. Okay, blindly you can follow this. Okay, where you wanted to store it as you said in a parameter. You can give a parameter, but I wanted to give a meaningful parameter. So here we are keeping a count of welcome. So I'm giving a parameter name as welcome. Okay. Your welcome count is not a string, it is not an integer, it is not a float, it is what? An LR parameter.
So later on you will do a LR save string, obviously, and within it you will have the LR eval string for that particular welcome count, correct? A to I.
Okay. Yeah.
I to
so,
I.
Yeah. Let me complete this, then I'll take the question. Okay. Now you see, when will you have some value in welcome count? After executing this one, or after executing this one, or after executing this one,
this
or
one,
after
yes.
Line number, refer to the line
37.
number.
37.
Okay. After executing this one, you will have some value in the welcome. Okay. Now you see, here is the piece of code I will write. If welcome count, I'm just writing an algorithm here. Okay.
Sure.
If welcome underscore count, okay, is greater than 0, okay, is greater than 0, then the transaction is pass or fail?
Pass.
Else, okay, so I'm writing this piece of code. Okay. So let's convert into something my Vue.jn understands. Okay. If welcome count is greater than 0, how can you say if a transaction is a pass?
LR underscore pass.
Okay. You have to say LR end transaction.
Okay.
Right? And then pass. Make sure the color changes, which means that my Vue.jn has understood. Else,
right.
Capital FIL, make sure the color changes.
Right.
Okay. So this is implemented. We have implemented this logic. Okay.
Right.
So I'll leave it over here so that you can understand it
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
Okay. Now watch this carefully and tell me if there is something fishy or something that needs to be done there.
Right. So this is still not converted to a C variable, which can be dealt
Right.
with.
Yeah. So 0 is what? It's an integer. What
Integer.
is this one? It is a
LR
parameter.
param.
Compare
Yeah.
a LLR parameter with a integer. So left side also you have to convert to a integer, right? You know how
Right.
to convert.
Yes.
Okay. Is this good?
Yes.
Are you sure? Is this good?
Yes.
This is an LR parameter. Whenever we make a reference to LR parameter, how would Wheelgen understand that this is an LR parameter? All
Oh, sorry.
right.
Parenthesis. Yes.
Okay. This is
Yeah.
extremely important. Otherwise, my Wheelgen will not understand. And as per the syntax, you have to have the double quotes.
Double quotes. Yes.
Are we okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I'll take your question. So what were you saying? Like when we're doing this, right? You add a question. So what was the question?
No, I just said that I think we will have to convert it by doing it A to I and do a save string first, put it into a variable, and then use the variable over here. That can be one approach, and this is the same approach. Yeah.
One. If you say LR save string, there's no point because already this is LR parameter. And LR save string is used for what?
Oh, converting C variables to LR param.
LR. But what I
Okay.
have is
Okay. Sorry, my
already
bad.
an LR. So why would you want to use an LR save string? So there's no
Correct.
point, right?
Okay. Okay.
Now, okay, if it's a pass, it's a pass. But the people usually, even if it's a pass, they will ask the region to take a call. So they will say LR auto. It's a good practice. Again, it's good. Okay.
Okay.
Now, if it's a fail, you can do several things. You are not doing anything, it will go ahead and execute the next transaction. Okay?
Okay.
If you're just saying that it's a fail, what it will do is it will go to the else loop, it will mark the transaction as fail, and it will go ahead and continue to execute to the next transaction.
Okay.
Okay? If you have any doubts, go ahead and run this once, just with your own eyes, and then we will proceed. We will see what needs to be done. Okay? I wanted to execute now registration. Go to the main action and go ahead
Okay.
and execute the registration. I want to execute only once. Okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you see beverage find, we have executed that piece of code. You see registering of beverage find is successful. Only the registration. Registering is successful, which means that there is no syntax errors over here. Okay,
Okay.
registering means that it doesn't mean that my beverage find is passed. Only the registration of beverage find is passed, which means that there is no syntax errors over here. That's what it means. You see, registering of beverage find is successful. Can you see that,
Right.
Sandeep?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that there's no syntax errors over here. Okay. But when will you get the result for the beverage file? Only after executing this piece of code. Okay. Now we are
Mm-hmm.
starting the transaction. You see, start transaction of launch is started. Okay. Now this launch has been executed. Launch has been executed. Okay. Okay. And also, can you tell me how many times this text called welcome appeared? Somewhere here it's
Once.
written once because it says count is equal to 1. This count will be stored in which parameter?
Welcome
This
count.
count will be stored in which parameter?
Welcome count. Yeah.
Welcome. And if you wanted to check it over here, what is the value for welcome count? Where can we check it? Can we check it from the cat,
Uh,
watch, or
n-
breakpoints, or call
I think
stack, or
runtime data because now.
can you see that?
Okay. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, as soon as we execute, it has created a parameter called welcome count and it has assigned the value 1, which is quite evident from
So just trying to get it right, Kumar. In runtime data, you will get all the C-oriented variables, right?
runtime data. You get all the LR parameters.
Sorry, LR param. Okay. Yeah.
And in watch, you can get the C variables.
Sure.
Okay, Here, simple thing. What is this welcome count?
Over here, it's a LR param.
LR parameter. That's what it's showing. So it's showing the LR parameter. If you have any doubts, you can look at this head.
Okay, okay,
In LoadRunner, people usually call it as parameters. I mean, the tool they wanted us to call parameters, but usually LoadRunner experts, they call LR parameters. I don't know why, because I've grown in that kind of environment. Everybody calls it LR parameters, so I'm calling it LR parameters. But
okay,
maybe some of the people just refer this as parameters. Okay, to be more
sure.
precise, people call it as LR parameters.
Okay,
Okay, and
okay,
yeah, and this one timestamp user ID random number. This is all we have created yesterday using the parameters over the left.
correct.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. Over here, if you go back here, this is where we have created parameters. All these are created. So I am
Okay,
referring to this as LR parameter. A lot of performance testers do that as well. Okay, I'm
okay,
not sure if
okay,
everybody, but most of them. Okay, and the
sure,
heading is also clearly written here if you have any doubts. Okay.
sure, sure.
Now you see welcome count will be greater than 0, right? So it should go to
Yeah,
the if loop. You see, it is going to the if loop. Okay, and again I'm ending the, I should have deleted this one because you have already ended the transaction. Okay, then it will go to the next. Are we clear?
so after LR auto, it jumped to the next iteration, right? It will ideally jump to the next, or sorry, or the next transaction, I suppose.
Right, over here.
Okay, so after LR auto, it will jump to the next transaction.
Right, if it's a pass. Okay,
If it's
let's
a
see what
pass,
would
yes.
happen if it's a fail. Okay, let's see what would happen if it's a fail. To make it fail, I purposefully write something here. Okay, it will search
Sure.
for some defects, it will fail definitely. Okay, I'm purposefully failing it. Okay, you got that
Okay.
point, right? I'm
Yeah.
searching for FDS FST, which will not be there. So obviously, my transaction will fail. Okay, so it will go to the else loop. Now you see, it is going to the else loop. Okay, let's
Right.
see what it is saying. Okay, ended with so what? Failed transaction. You see, ended
Hmm.
with a failed status. Can you see that?
Yes.
But you see, my script is continuing and executing the next transaction.
So either ways, I think it is still the doing the same thing, right?
Right. So which means that should we enhance the script more?
Yes.
Okay. So it totally depends what you wanted to do. Most of the times you wanted to continue. If you want to continue, don't add any additional piece of code. But if you don't want to continue, okay, you
Hmm.
can use LR abort. Okay, which means that
Okay.
the script will stop there. Okay, just to prove that. You see, my script has aborted. Can you see that?
Okay.
Abort was
Okay.
called for this action and it got aborted. Okay,
So that
so
view user itself gets terminated, is it? I mean, like,
terminate. Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
but
Yeah.
there are better ways to handle it using LR exit. Okay,
Okay.
now let's look at the LR exit. What it is doing, you can give a continuation option and LR exit states. Okay,
Right.
so continuation option. Okay, what are these continuation options? Let's look at that. LR exit the user. As you said, it will continuously exit the whole user without doing anything. Okay, without doing
Good.
anything. First one. Okay,
Yeah.
you can use that. If you're using Java, you can use this. If you're using C, you can use this. I'm using C. Okay. So how do I know I'm using C? Go to runtime settings. Somewhere here it should say no. Uh, Instead of here, it should show somewhere here. But okay, over more than here, go to the recording options. It should say C here, which means that your
Right.
script is C line. Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can select the JavaScript, so you will Java. So here, I can use this LR exit user.
Hmm.
Okay, and what is the next attribute over here? What is the next attribute? exit status.
Exit status.
Okay. What are the different options exit status we have? We have LR pass, LR fail, and LR auto. Okay. If you really want to mark it as LR fail, you can mark it as LR. Okay, but it's up to you how you want it to deal with it.
Okay.
Now what happens? This will work just like your LR abort. Okay, it will abort the user and it will mark it as fail. Okay, if you have any doubts, we can run it. Okay, see, it has marked it as failed. Can you see? It is marked it as failed and aborted the user. And the whole script will be marked as failed. Okay, but generally people don't do all this. Okay, they just continue. If it's not hurting me, I'll continue, or I'll say allow. Okay, so but there are other options as well. As you said, you wanted to go to the next action. Okay, you wanted to go to the next action. Okay, without hurting this. Okay, so what you can do is, let me try from runtime settings so that I can demonstrate this LR exit. Much more effectively. Okay. And let's run it for 3 iterations. Okay. Now let's look at what is this LR exit status. Okay. So what are the other continuation options we'll see? Okay. LR exit action and continue. So I have 2 actions now. It will only exit the current action and continue with the next action. This is what you wanted, right?
Okay.
Okay. Here you wanted to mark it as fail, you can, or you can say LR auto. Okay.
So what is the difference between auto and fail, Kumar?
Fail, it will properly fail. Auto, the user will decide if it's a pass or a fail.
Okay.
Pass means it will certainly pass. Hang on, this became a pain in the neck. Let me just get rid of this runtime viewer. Okay, so you see, now you are exiting, but only exiting this action, it will go to the next one. Okay, see, it started executing the next action.
Other action, right.
Okay, and this one, it has marked as fail. You did LR auto, so it has marked this transaction as fail, and it is continuing to the next action.
Right.
Okay. So it is continuing for multiple iterations. I think I have ran it for 3 times. It is continuing with the multiple iterations. But notice that the script here is marking as pass, but the transaction is marked as fail.
Correct.
Okay. But the transaction is marked as fail. So it's better we use the LR auto. But had we used LR fail here, the whole script will be marked as fail. Okay. Let's run that one as well. Okay. So here I'll say LR fail instead of saying LR auto. Now you go ahead and run it. Earlier you see the script was passed, but the transaction was failed. Here you see the transaction is failed and the script is also failed.
Right. Okay. Okay. Makes sense.
And you're marking it as failed. One more thing you would have noticed is, okay. So it is random alphanumeric, ending the action random alphanumeric.
Right.
Starting the alphanumeric. So first seems to be alphanumeric, then registration. Okay. So it has entered the transaction. Okay. So it has entered the registration, then alphanumeric. Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. But the only thing now you have asked the difference between LR auto and LR fail, right? LR auto, the overall script it is marking as pass, but the transaction was marked as fail. Here both of them is marked as fail. Okay. That's the reason why people usually ask LR auto, because your client, you don't want it to project the whole script as failed just because a particular transaction is failed. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So you can still mark a transaction as fail, but on the exit part of it, if you put it as auto, it won't show the script as failed.
Let me try that. Okay. Now both of them are auto. It will certainly, the script will pass, but the transaction will fail. Okay. So you see, script as passed. Launch is also showing as pass. It
So,
says registered web page find successful. It was able to find the text called FDSFS here. What's happening? How is that possible?
hmm.
Uh, Little tricky. Something funny is going on.
Oh,
Sometimes the tool is not stable.
yeah.
Okay. So you don't want to get there. Both of them auto it's not working. Okay. If I say this has failed,
No, I think the earlier combination was like, end transaction was fail and the exit was auto, which worked fine. That was the perfect one.
this was failed, right? This
Yeah,
was
that was
failed.
fail. This was auto.
Yeah. It was failed. The
Oh,
overall is showing as pass, but this is
yeah.
failed. Okay. This is the combination you can have. Okay.
Hmm.
Now let's explore the other options. This is it will only exit this action. Okay. But it will
Hmm.
continue to the next action. Okay. So
Okay.
let me time settings. What is
So, Kumar, let's say, I wanted to have, let's say I have three actions in this whole script. Okay.
right?
Now, if at all this particular transaction is a fail, I want to skip one transaction and go to the other transaction, like a customized one. So, can we write like if so and so transaction fail, then we move on to so and so, so and so?
No, you're saying action or transaction.
I'm calling about an action. Okay, so if a particular action is failing, let's say if file operation is failing, okay, I don't want to go to registration, but I want to go to random alphanumeric directly. So that kind of a thing.
Then you have to write it over here. That piece of code you have to write it
Yes. So yeah, that was the scenario which I wanted to kind of just visit. Yeah.
over. Okay. So that's pretty simple. So what we can do is uh, over here, right? So what I'll do is I'll put a logout beside below this. Okay. Let me
Hmm.
move the logout below this. Here it doesn't matter. Actually, in runtime settings is what matters. But
Okay.
visually, like
Right.
you'll be able to
Makes
relate it
sense.
well.
Yes.
Okay. So now you wanted to add what?
Logout.
Okay. So what you're saying is registration is failed. You want to
Hmm.
skip random alphanumeric and go to logout. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
this what I will do is I'll not drive the random alphanumeric over here. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. 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 Whatever I thought it will not work because
So
good.
let's turn it the other way around. If that is pass, then skip random alpha and go to
Okay.
logout. Either ways.
Okay. So what I will do is I'll create a flag. Okay. Int flag is equal to 0. Okay. So for
Hmm.
flag, they have another type of variable that they use, but I'm using int. Okay. So int flag is equal to 1. Okay. In case if it goes to else loop, okay, I'll say I is equal to okay 1. Right? In
Okay.
case if it goes to else loop. Otherwise it stays 0. Okay.
Correct.
And here in the main transaction, what I will put is if okay registration
Hmm.
is done. Okay, so we will go ahead and do this one. So this is logout, right? I want the logout over here.
Yeah.
Let me drive from the main action. Okay, I thought there is another way to do it, but there it will be tricky. Okay, so
Okay.
now what we will do in case something happens in okay registration. Okay,
Hmm.
okay in case something happens in the registration, I will be incremented to 1, right? If
Yeah.
uh,
I
if
think we
I
set that as a flag variable or a I variable. I was, yeah, we made it as I is equal to 1 over there,
hang on,
but I think it was declared as flag.
flag. Okay, okay. Hang on 1 second. So I think I got little carried away. Okay, okay. So now you come here and if you say flag is equal to 0, okay, flag is
Hmm.
equal to 0, okay, that's a comparison, right? So you have to have the double quotes. Then you go ahead and execute this, else you will skip.
Okay, fine. So this I understand. If flag double equal to 0, okay, fine. Okay, how about if registration as a action is pass? How do you handle that one?
No,
So I
I didn't
understand
get you.
we use the approach of using flag as a variable to set it if it changes uh, anything other than 0. That is one of the approaches. But how about registration action or maybe I think I'm being a little jumbled up. What I'm referring to is, let's say if there's an action which only contains one transaction, okay, or for that matter just a piece of action. If this action is passed, then I move on to the then I move on to a separate customized action, another action which I want to, not one in the flow.
You can
Is there
have
something
the,
that we can do?
let's say you have a customized action called book desktop. Okay,
Correct.
then
Yes.
you can add that piece of code, right? If it is if it's failed, like you're saying that if flag is equal to 1, okay, which is a fail, okay, then you wanted to
Uh-huh.
execute something else, right? That's
Correct.
what is,
So yeah, in the
yeah.
same way, if you said like if let's say if book mobile is equal to LR pass, or if book desktop is double equal to LR fail, something like that.
No, I didn't get it because pass and fail applies to not actions but transactions.
Okay, great. So then, thank you. So then, in that case, can we use a transaction to say that if this pass, then you go to that action? Can we do that? Is that possible?
I want your requirement very clear. I'm little confused
Okay.
with your question because
Okay. Sorry.
the
Sorry about that. Yeah.
forward. So let's say only this transaction we are talking about. Okay. Now
Correct.
you tell me
Yes.
this transaction we are talking about. What will
Correct.
happen over here? I'm telling you. Okay. So here, if this transaction fails, you are exiting this transaction. Okay. You are marking
Yes.
before exiting. You are marking the flag as 1. Okay,
Correct.
then you don't want it to execute, uh, you wanted to exit this particular thing, so you have exited before making
Yeah.
the flag. Okay,
Yes.
now you, let's say instead of runtime settings you are driving it from the main
Main
action.
action.
Okay,
Correct.
so
Yes.
it will exit this one and it will go to the main action, and in the main
Correct.
action what it will do, it will check for the flag. If it is 0, then it will go ahead and execute the next action. Okay, if the
Okay.
flag is failed, it will go ahead and execute some other action. Then finally
Okay.
logout will be executed irrespective of the flag. Okay, which
Fine.
means that irrespective of whether this one is a pass or a fail, logout will be executed. But depending on the pass or a fail of the particular transaction, you're executing all of this. Okay, that's
Okay.
one case. Now you don't, even if it's a fail, you wanted to continue all of this, then it will go ahead and take that call. You just simply delete this one. So
Correct.
what it will do,
Correct.
it will mark this as flag is equal to 1 and it will continue
Yes.
to execute all of this action. Then it will go to the main action and then
Yes.
depending on the flag, either it will execute this one or this
Okay. Okay.
one. Okay. Now your question,
Yes.
please.
Okay. Now my question is, let's say if we have the now I'm referring to a transaction. Huh? I'm
Launch
particularly yes, particularly referring to the transaction. Let's say if launch double equal to pass, then go to
launch
certain
double
other action.
pass. You cannot have launch double equal to pass. Launch is the
Okay.
transaction.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
But
sorry, launch double equal to LR underscore pass or something like that, because I remember something flashing back in my mind, something like that as a condition. Is that possible?
do that as well. I think we can do that as well. Okay. So you wanted to, I think it is possible. Okay. You want an LR function which will capture the transaction status, right? Okay.
Correct. Yes.
It is possible. It is possible, but I've never used. So LR get transaction status. Okay. We'll try that. Not a
Okay.
big. So here,
Mhm.
whether it's a pass or a fail, I don't care. Okay, so
Okay.
uh, I'm not even worrying about the flag here.
Yes.
Okay, so uh, and if you wanted to do that, I don't think if you really need if else loop, you can just end the transaction. Okay,
Correct.
so
Okay.
this one let it be there as it is. I'm not disturbing. So you see LR
Mhm.
start transaction and LR end transaction is there.
Okay.
Now you wanted to
Yeah.
get the status of it. Okay, LR
Yes.
LR get attribute long, LR host, LR transaction
Yeah.
instance,
Yeah.
transaction
Transition.
state. Okay,
Okay.
so what is some transaction name? Whatever the transaction you wanted the status. Okay, so I
Right.
want the status for this sign up.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sure it should be in the double quotes, which I will check shortly. Okay,
Okay.
and I
Hmm.
wanted to see what is the output of it and how we can store it. So again, click on this, press F1. Output is integer. Okay, so you can see LR get status is equal to fail. Okay, LR fail.
Ah, correct.
Then you are saying blah blah blah. End the transaction
Yes.
as LR. Okay, so you see he has started the transaction. Okay, if LR get status is equal to LR fail. Okay, then what it is doing, it is ending the transaction else carry. Okay, this is
Yes.
also
Yes.
one sort of error handling that you can do. But here
Yes.
output, what I am surprised is he has given the output of this is an integer.
Int.
Okay,
Correct.
uh, but how can then how is that he's comparing with LR fail
Because LR fail by default is one. Okay.
zero? Hang
That,
on,
yeah,
LR fail. Okay, I think it is by default minus 1 meg. Okay, or sorry, 1 meg. Okay, or zero.
yeah.
Okay, hang on. Let's play around with this a little bit so that we get a complete
Sure.
knowledge on this one. Okay, so LR fail itself has some value looks like. Okay, this default value LR fail itself has some default integer value. Anyways, okay, let's try to do it with this assumption. Okay, the output
Yeah.
of
I
this
think
is
you'll also find the explanation within F1 itself, Kumar. I think you have that. So yeah, just do this. Yeah. Isko F1 kar do. LR auto ko. Yeah.
let's put an F1 here.
Yeah.
It's going to the LRN transaction. It's not giving the F1 for this one. Okay, so
Okay.
okay, now you're getting the status for sign up. Okay, the output of this
Correct.
is an integer, right? Let me store it in
Yes.
an integer. Okay, int T status, which is transaction status. Okay,
Hmm.
here is where we are doing, right? So LR
Yeah.
get transaction status, uh, T status is what we have done, right? Okay, T status is a variable. Now, hang on. What will be pass? What will be fail? We will look into this. Okay. So if T
Yes.
status output is what, then pass, and what is out. Return value, return the transaction status or a negative number for error. Okay. If it's a negative number, oh, it will return the transaction status or a negative number. Okay.
Right.
See the transaction status, so it will return the
Yeah.
transaction
LR field
status.
is one.
Why?
See the value over there. You have the value associated. Yeah.
Auto is 2, pass is 0, okay, and stop is 3, about it. So
Okay.
fail is minus 1. If it is auto, I'm okay, but fail is what causes me problem. So I'll say
One.
1. So I'll
Yes.
say uh, if, okay, T
Hmm.
control space status is equal to 1, okay, then you end the transaction as fail. Else it's a pass. I mean, yeah, end the transaction as
Yes.
fail. Else it's a pass.
Pass.
Okay. Control Shift T. This seems to be here you have to, whenever there is syntax errors, right? It will not allow
Hmm.
you to use the shortcuts. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
space, this is sign off, right? This is a fail, right? So if it's one, it's
Right.
a fail. Else, Control Shift T, space. This
It's
is
sign
what.
up page, right? Or sign off? Are we doing a sign up page?
Yeah, this is a sign up. This is sign up. Sorry, it's a sign up.
Yeah.
Sign up. Okay, we
Hmm.
can do this
Hmm.
error handling as well.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Now, Kumar, let's say if t state is double equal to one, can we also use it as like a simple within this piece of code? Can I also write LR start transaction so and so? Can I direct it that way as well?
Here we have started the transaction.
Yeah, that's fine. So I understand. We have started that transaction within this double equal to one loop. May can I direct it to some other transaction? Can I direct it to some other customized transaction, like LR underscore start transaction for something which I wanted to do?
Yeah, you can write the whole piece of code inside it if you want it.
Right.
Okay, or you
Okay.
can call an action. Let's say the other lines that you wanted, right? You can
Right.
put all of that into one action and call it over here. Or you say that, okay, if it is there, something should happen, else something should happen. That
Right.
whatever needs to happen, put all that into an action and call that action here.
I
So
can
if
call
it
the
is,
action over here.
let's say
Okay.
you wanted to book the laptop, call that action over here, book laptop.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. Correct. This is what.
Okay,
Yeah.
book laptop, and then you can do what it does
Okay.
is now if it's a fail, it will end the transaction as fail, and then it will book the laptop, then it will come back and execute the next transaction, which is registration in this
Right.
case. If you don't want this, just delete all of that and put it into a next action or do whatever you want.
Okay. Okay. Kumar, one thing, we use the if condition over there. I remember in the initial stages when we were attempting with the if condition, you had used a semicolon over there. But over here, we are not using any semicolon.
No. I think semicolon is not required. Maybe accidentally I put it. Even if you put it, it's not an issue. It's not going to throw error. You
Okay.
see, I put
Okay.
semicolon and compile it. It's not going to throw a compilation
Okay.
error. Okay. Okay. It is showing that declared. You should have declared flag as a global variable
Global.
because you are
Correct.
using the flag across the actions, right?
Right. Oh, the syntax, I think so.
It's a small L. You have to put a small L here.
Okay. Okay. And even logout is there just below it. Yeah. Correct.
Okay, you see, I've put a
Okay.
registration. I've put a semicolon. It's not throwing any error. Even if
Check.
you
Okay.
put a semicolon, okay, it's not.
Okay.
So honestly speaking, it's not required. But if you add also, it's not going to hurt you.
Okay. 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 All right. Great. So I think, yeah, that's the conditional handling part. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so can we say we have covered? Okay, this one I've deleted now. Can we say we have covered this one? Sorry, we have covered this one.
Yes, we have. Yes.
Yeah. Now what I'll do is I'll talk about the other advanced parameter types. We have been covering, but we'll continue to cover this. Okay.
Sure.
So
Okay.
now in this end transaction, okay, for usually if it's a pass, you really don't want it to know for which user, for which iteration something has passed. But if it's
Hmm.
something is failed, when you wanted to run it in a controller, you are running in a controller for multiple users for multiple iterations. And something is failed, you really wanted to know for which user, for which iteration something has failed, and for which LG. Okay,
Right.
typical. Okay, so this is something that you can do. LR output message. Okay, comma. Okay, I've built the skeleton. Now you see,
Mm.
whatever this transaction, launch transaction. Okay, you wanted to write something like this: launch transaction failed for wait for, okay, wait for user, for wait for user, okay, for which user,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
wait for user, LG for which LG, okay, and which group. Okay, let's say you wanted to know all this. Okay, if it's first, you don't really care, but if it's a fail, you need to begin to see why something has failed. Okay, when you wanted
Mm-hmm.
to understand why something has failed, the first thing that you wanted to understand is for which user ID it has failed and for which iteration has failed, and this user is coming from which group. Okay,
Correct.
sometimes what happens, like some transactions related to all the groups will be failed, or some transactions related to all one user ID will be failed. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
to understand that, it's critical to output this. Okay, this is almost all performance testers do it. Now, how do I get the user ID and LG and the group ID? Okay, for the thing, it is very, very simple. Okay, user ID, you already know how to get the user ID.
Yes.
Okay, so here you go ahead and select the user ID. Now it will give me the user ID. When you're running with the VUGen, only one user will be executing and the user ID will be always one. But when you're running from the controller, this changes. Okay,
Okay.
you know that part, right, Sandeep?
No, no, Kumar. No.
Oh, so I thought you know the basics really well, so I assume certain things and going forward. Okay, I'm
So,
talking about
no,
things.
I think you're talking about like user ID when you're running with Vusion. Obviously, since there is one user, that's the reason why it's one over here. With controller, obviously the numbers will change. That part I understand. But is there anything else to that?
No, no. So this will capture the ID number of.
Yeah, yeah. Correct, correct, correct. Yeah, that I understand.
So here now this is the, let's say you are capturing the iteration number. Okay.
Hmm.
So here I say IT number. Okay. I number, which is iteration. Okay. So it
Hmm.
will capture the iteration number for
Correct.
which block aspect. Okay. I number,
Yeah.
and here I capture the group number. Okay. So LG name. Okay.
LG
LG
name.
name. One will give you the LG
Correct.
name. Okay.
Hmm.
Every load generator will have a name. You give the LG name. Okay. Now you
Hmm.
see, copy, the variable names are copied. Okay, parameters names. Okay,
Yeah.
so a large span transaction for the user, here it has to print the user number, right? It has to
Hmm.
print the user ID. Okay,
Hmm.
and LG name, here it should give the LG name. I'll fix the code, don't worry. Okay,
Sure. Yeah.
iteration number. Okay, here it should go, the iteration number should go here. And if you wanted to print out something else, you can always get whatever you want from here. Group name you can print, iteration number print you can print, LG name you can print,
Right.
uh, and the user ID. User ID is already here. Okay, so
Yeah.
user ID you can print. User ID, LG name, iteration number, group name. Okay, so
Hmm.
typically all of the four of them will be printed, but I am demonstrating three of them, so the fourth one should not be difficult. Okay,
Right.
now you see, user ID is what? It's an LR parameter, right? Right?
Right. Yes.
Okay, so generally you have to pass it over here. Okay, comma, LG name
Again, the same. Yeah. Hmm.
is pass it over here, and I number you have to pass it over. Okay, now here here is where it has to print out, right? So here you have to
Right.
give the placeholder. So what placeholder should be given? Percentile
Person.
D, percentile
Hmm.
yes, or percentile F?
I think it's ID, so it has to be numbers for users. So D and percentage S for LG and percentage D for iteration number again.
Okay. This is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Right. But okay, percentile D is the placeholder for integer. But B user ID is what?
It's integer.
B user ID is what?
It's a LR param. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So obviously LR parameter you cannot print out. So you have to convert to what this one?
You have to string or integer rather a to I and LR eval string under within it. Yeah.
I mean logically it makes sense, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So let me write it in the new line because it's just extended. Okay. So here
Okay.
this is the LR parameter. So this should be in the curly braces.
Hmm.
Same thing for LG name. LG name is what? You're printing out
It's
placeholder
a
is
yeah
percentage string. So you have to
string.
convert
Correct.
LR parameter to a string. So how would you do it?
Eval string.
Wonderful. So we just have to use LR eval string.
Right.
Okay.
Hmm.
I hope your confidence level is increasing.
Yes. Yes, Kumar. Kumar, while you were doing this, I was just trying to recall day before yesterday's word that you mentioned. Let's say if we are doing a correlation, and within the correlation, obviously, you've generated a value which is being stored in a string, and that string has to be used in a web custom request. So the web custom request will use a LR parameter, won't use a string. Am I correct?
Yeah. LR, what is it? LR function like web big data you're saying, right?
Yes, web submit data. It will use a
You're
LR
passing,
param, right?
it has to be LR parameter. It will take only LR
Correct.
parameter. Yeah.
Okay. 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 Yeah.
Okay. So this is what we have built now. Okay.
Okay.
Now we'll run it and purposefully we made this as fail. Okay. Hopefully this is a launch transaction. We're purposefully making it as a fail. So it will go ahead and execute this LR output message and print out the LG name and blah blah blah. Okay.
Okay.
Before that,
Okay.
I'll just compile it. No errors detected. Let's go ahead and quickly run it. Okay, it's failing and it's outputting the value. LR transaction failed for user 1, LG local,
LG local.
iteration number 1. Okay,
Correct.
and if you want, you can add the other things as well, other appropriate things you want. There was one
Right.
thing that you see, right? What was that? User, LG, item, group name. Okay, you can print out the
Okay.
group. Okay, so this is what it is. Now, what we have covered is advanced parameter types is also covered. And this is
Kumar, in the advanced parameter, I saw something as an XML. XML also as being a advanced type parameter. So
like
when does that when can that be used? Is it when you actually want to capture a complete XML structure or something?
when you wanted to pass, you XML is an input, and you wanted to pass that into something. Okay, then
Okay.
you use that XML parameter and create it and put the XML inside it, and wherever you want it, you can use it. Let's say you
Okay. Great.
pass a function or something like that. Very rarely
Okay.
use it. If it was
Okay.
web services as well, nobody used that XML. There are other ways to do it. Okay,
Okay.
so yeah, we can use another ways.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Great.
Wonderful. So
Okay.
we'll stop here today. So as
Yes.
I've told you, I'm rushing somewhere, and tomorrow when we come back, we'll start with the correlation parts and make everything clear to you regarding the correlation. And
Yes.
tomorrow being
Yes.
Saturday, I was expecting that you will stay a little longer. Okay, and we'll start a
Yes.
little earlier, maybe at 9 o'clock same time. I mean 9:15, and go for 2 hours possibly. And over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I wanted to wrap up as much as possible.
Sure. 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 Sure, Kumar. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Kumar, couple of things. The videos, if you can just upload them and have them ready for the online portal that you are